Good morning, everybody. So today we're going to look at Pythagorean Theorem. Now, this may be something you've done before, but it's been my experience that just about everybody needs a refresher on it. So we're going to talk about the Pythagorean Theorem. The Pythagorean Theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and b are the lengths of the legs of the triangle, and c is the length of the hypotenuse. That's the word is. The hypotenuse is the longest side of any right triangle. It is always notated by the letter C and can always be found across from the 90-degree angle, or if you want to, across from the box, across from the square, however you want to look at that. Okay? So how can you tell which side is the hypotenuse? Before I do this, I just realized I didn't really say. The Pythagorean theorem is the way of finding a missing side on a triangle, on a right triangle, if you have two of the sides already. If you have two of them, this is the way you find the third one. Okay, so how can you tell which side's the hypotenuse? There's three ways. Okay, the first way that I kind of like is find the L, and once you find the L, you know that the hypotenuse is not part of the L, and so this has to be C. Another way some people like is they like to find the square, the box, and they know the box points at the hypotenuse. But I had a kid a couple years ago who could never get those, and then he finally did something. He saw something online, or I don't know, somebody told him, but anyways, he comes to class and he goes, "I got it." And he showed me every picture, he pointed to it, he found the hypotenuse. And what he does is he puts his finger on the square, and then he says, "I'm not touching the hypotenuse." So that's C. I was like, dude, you do however you need to do. That works. You do that. So however it works for you, do that. Okay, find the L. So here's the L. The box points at it, or touch the square. Either one of those works. So there are 6 steps to using the Pythagorean theorem when you got your basic Pythagorean theorem problems. So I'm going to run you through those. The first step for me is always write the Pythagorean theorem. So the Pythagorean theorem, I'm going to write it for this problem right here. The Pythagorean theorem is, I'm going to write it over here, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Alright, alright, so we're going to write the Pythagorean theorem. The next step is to label. We're going to label A, B, and C. So the first step is to find C. I'm not touching C. I'm not touching the hypotenuse. This is C. The other two sides are A and B. It doesn't matter which one's which. A, B. I like to do it left to right. If you want to do this one B and that one H, you want to do the smallest one is A and the next smallest is B, that's fine. Sometimes you don't know one of these though, so you don't really know which one's the longest. The next step, step 3, is to substitute. All right, and I'm going to substitute all 3 things. So A is 4, B is 3, and C is X. That is an X there. Maybe it's a Z. No, it's an X. All right, so the next step is to square 2 numbers. Well, 4 squared is 16, and 3 squared is 9. And then the next step is to add or subtract. You're going to add if the numbers are on the same side. You're going to subtract if one number's here and one number's here. So I'm going to add these together. I get 25. And the last step is to take the square root. And the square root of 25 is 5. There it is. That is how Pythagorean theorem works. That is what we're going to do today. I've got a few more examples for you. Realize I'm actually going to need a calculator for some of these, but I will get one when the time comes. So we've got 12, 15, and this side is our question mark. So again, the 6 steps. First, you write the Pythagorean theorem. I do it every problem. Hate me if you want. Step 2 is to label A, B, and C. I'm going to cover up that square, and this is C. So this would be A and B. Now, I know we have A, B, C on this triangle, but these are capital letters. These are points. A, B, and C lowercase, even though you're like, how you tell a lowercase c from a capital C? Or, you know, I know it's kind of weird. I know my A looks like a 9, and I apologize for that. Okay? But these are lowercase, and so that's how you denote the signs. So I'm going to substitute, which is step 3. So I've got 12 squared plus question mark squared equals 15 squared. The next step is to square 2 numbers, so that would be 144, 12 times 12. I don't know what question mark squared is, and 15 squared is 225. Step 5 is to add or subtract. I'm going to add if the numbers are on the same side. They're not. And I'm going to subtract. And 225 minus 144 is 81. Yeah, 81. So question mark squared is 81. And the last step is to take the square root. The square root of 81 is 9. Now sometimes it works out nice and neat, sometimes it doesn't. This next one will also work out nice and neat. I'm just saying, don't get used to that, because that doesn't happen all the time. So on our next one here, we're going to take a look at, we've got a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Put my finger on the square. I'm not touching c, so that's c, that's a, and that's b. Step 3 is substitute. A is question mark squared plus 8 squared equals 10 squared. I'm going to square 2 numbers now. I can't square this one, but that's 81, and that's 100. I'm looking at that going, something's wrong, and it is, because 8 squared is not 81. I apologize, guys. That is 64. I don't know where my head is. That is 64. The next step is to add if they're on the same side. They're not. Subtract if they're on different sides. So question mark squared is going to be 36. And then the last step is to take the square root. The square root of 36 is 6. There it is. All right. On the back, we got a few more of these. They get a little bit harder because we end up with some decimals. Sorry. It's going to happen. Oh my God, there's a radical. That's insane. Man, don't do that. All right, so actually I'm going to tell you this one is probably one of the easier ones we'll do. But let's take a look at this one. So first step again, write the Pythagorean theorem. Next step is to label. Again, cover up the square. This must be C. So this is A and B. I'm going to substitute in what I have. So I've got 5 squared plus 14 squared equals question mark squared. Next step is to square the numbers. 5 times 5 is 25. 14 times 14. Don't want to mess up. I'm pretty sure it's 196. I just wanted to double check. It's been a day, and it's really early. All right, and so that's going to equal question mark squared. The next step is to add or subtract. I'm going to add because they're on the same side. That one I can do in my head, I hope. Let's see, that'd be a 1, create a 1. That'll be a 221. I believe that's right. Yeah, that's totally right. And then the last step is to take the square root. And the square root of 221 is not perfect. All right, the square root of 221 is 14.8606874731851. It keeps going on and on and on forever. So in this class, unless it says otherwise, you are going to round to 2 decimal places. So this would be 14.87. Now, this does not equal that. This is kind of that. It's close to that. So what we do is we put the little about symbol. This is about that. All right, this one, you got a decimal, you're pretty much guaranteed you're going to have an about. Okay, so let's run through this one real quick. Again, you have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Sorry, caught my eye. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right, we're going to label now, so put my finger on the square. So this is c. So this would be a, this would be b. So my a is my question mark. My b is 2.1. My c is 7.8. All right. I'm going to square the numbers. And to make sure I don't mess up, I'm using a calculator. Excuse me. 2.1 times 2.1 is 4.41. So question mark squared plus 4.41 equals 7.8 times 7.8 is 60.84. Now, the next step is to subtract because they're on different sides. So my question mark will equal, when I subtract 4.41 from 60.84, I get 56.43. Man. Excuse me, that's squared. And the last step is to take the square root of 56.43. And that is, I'm pretty sure that's not going to be exact. Yeah. That's going to be about 7.51. All right, that's what you end up with. Okay. As for this one, as scary as this looks, it's really, really, really not that bad. In fact, I'm going to tell you, you don't even need a calculator for it. All right, so we are looking for this side. We're given these two. So here's the situation. Again, start with the Pythagorean Theorem. Don't treat it any differently. Then you have got a label. Put my finger on the square. This is C. And so this will be my A and my B. So this is going to be question mark squared plus square root of 60 squared. And that's going to equal 12 squared. The next step is the hard one. What a lot of people think is the hard one. It's actually the easiest one ever. When you got to square two numbers. Can't square that.
Good morning, Spring High School. If you're in room 2, please make your way to your video.
If you use the calculator, you'll find out that what this answer is. But I'm just going to run you through it real quick because you don't need it. All right. The square root of 60 squared. If you think about it, the square root of 4 squared, or the square root of 100 squared, or the square root of 64 squared. The square root of 4 is 2, but 2 squared is 4. The square root of 100 is 10, but 10 squared is 100. And 64, the square root of 64 is 8, and 8 squared is 64. You can even do it another way. You could say, say 5. The square root of 5 squared. Let's say you wanted to square it first. Well, 5 squared sorry, it's an alarm on my phone. I know. Hush. Alright, so the square root of 5 squared, if you square the 5 first and go 25, well, then you got the square root left, you still end up with 5. And so the thing is, squares and square roots are opposites of each other. It's kind of like when you do 3 plus 2 minus 3. They're actually 3 plus 2 minus 2. You end up with 3. Okay, because plus and minus are opposites of each other. So you end up back where you started. So the square root of 60 squared is just 60. And 12 squared is 144. The next step is to subtract 60 from 144. And 60 from 144 would be 64. No. It was supposed to be when I did this in my head last night, but I messed up. But that's okay. That's going to be 84. And the square root of 84, we do actually need the calculator for. My mistake. The square root of 84 is about 9.17. All right, so all right, looking at this last problem. There is a map of triangle-shaped parking lot and 3 square feet